Hey Tanner, how did growing up shoveling pig poop at 6 a.m. Form you into the man you are today?
Man, it let me appreciate getting up and hopping in the shower and exiting the door that's not going out to scrape the pig crap. But it just taught me to appreciate a hard day's work and be thankful that you get another day to work. And it sets me apart from the other guys who don't want to put in that extra elbow grease, because it doesn't bother me at all.
Welcome to the edition of the Hoel Truth Podcast. Today, as we continue our series on sales reps, because we love sales reps around here, and Mr. Tanner Cox is our honored and special guest today. So, Tanner, take a second, introduce yourself, your family, where you grew up, that kind of stuff.
All right, I'm Tanner Cox, project manager for Hoel Roofing. Got a dad of three. Grew up in Connersville, Indiana, right next door here to Rushville. So I'm a local guy. Like I said, got three young children in the thick of it, but loving life, you know.
You gonna talk about your wife or just your kids?
My wife, Tabitha, fully responsible for the beautiful family I have. Yeah, Tabitha Cox. She's in school right now, finishing up her nurse practitioner. So she's getting ready to handle her business and take care of all the people around this area. So that's nice to look forward to. And like I said, in the thick of it, we're nonstop all the time with three kids under 6. So, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
What are the ages again?
I got a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 2-year-old. Yeah, 3 and 2-year-old are the best of friends and the worst of enemies. You know, it's fun to watch and fun to be a part of.
How much longer has your wife got on her nurse practitioner?
She will be done in November. So she's really wrapping it up. She's doing all her clinicals and everything, getting all the everything finalized. So she's looking forward to it. She's happy.
So she test in November, or when will she test?
Yeah, she'll actually test in February. She'll be done with school in November, but she's been a nurse for 10 plus years before this, so she was just time she wanted to evolve and do something different. So I think she's perfectly aligned for that.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. And you just recently moved back to Connersville, right?
Yep. Yeah, I've grew up in Connersville. Kind of been up and down from Indiana, from Indy down to Jeffersonville. Always kind of been around the construction trade. And so it was nice when I got moved back here. We got moved to Greenfield for about the last 4 years. And that's when I seen Bob's ad online looking for some more help. And it's been a blessing. I'm really glad to be a part of the team and be back home, have the village again.
Yeah.
Can call old grandpa, come grab Logan or something, and take the wife out for a date. So it's nice to be back around.
Yeah, and one thing, Tanner, that I appreciate about you is you're so upbeat, you're so happy. Earlier, I just heard your laugh when I said something, and it's contagious. We're all in the thick of something. My kids are a few years older, though, on top of trying to run a business with that. And there's some days that it's like, whew, that's wear your ass out,
Yeah.
So, kind of talk a little bit, because I really do. I feel like that sets you apart from a lot of people. Is honestly your positive personality, your positive attitude. Because genuinely, to me, it comes so natural. There's many times I'm in the office and I'm in the back 40 and I hear your laugh, Yeah. Kind of share a little bit on that.
Well, everybody's got their rough upbringing, rough past, and I, went years of dwelling on things, worrying, and especially after I started having my kids, I realized, you can find the light in any situation. It's not ever that bad. Mm-hmm. And when you got yourself surrounded by people that support you and love you, I always like lifting the mood. I can usually walk into a room and pin it immediately on the vibe, on what everybody's feeling, and I don't feel obligated to lift that vibe, but it makes me feel good to know I can crack a laugh off, or I can get somebody course of directions day change, with just a 5-minute conversation. So, and I am goofy. I'm always cutting up. And usually if I'm not giving you a hard time, I probably really don't like you that much. So, I don't know. It's usually I cut up and rib with the guys that I like the most. So I think that builds camaraderie. That might be an old school thing, but yeah, the friendly ribbing, I enjoy that. And it keeps everybody on their toes.
Well, and honestly, life is short. And you're right. It's never that bad. And we all go through stuff. We all grow up, I always share, for me, I grew up before I was 2, my mom and dad were bankrupt and divorced. Mm-hmm. So, and my mom really didn't have anything to do with me. Yeah. So I said when I was going to have kids, come high hell or water, I wanted my kids are going to grow up in a house where mom and dad love each other. Mm-hmm. And very, very fortunate that, if anybody ever questions my sales ability, then just go meet my wife. Yeah. I can close the best, but for me, there's aspects of growing up that I don't want my kids to ever know, and that is to me, that is one of them that is just so near and dear to my heart that it's there's just things I do intentionally and things that I did 15 years ago when I met my wife. So when we were to have kids and that, hopefully that was, the outcome, and very, very thankful for a great wife that loves me and supports me and that puts up with my craziness at the end of the day. So let's talk a little bit about being a dad, because I feel like the world tells you one thing. And once again, I'm going to talk on my dad and brag on my dad for a minute. A couple things that he always said, he took a 2, 3, 4-year-old and a 8-year-old and said, I'll raise them kids myself. Yeah. But 2 things my dad always says still sticks to me: be honest and work hard. And that really does fix a lot of things in life. So talk a little bit about maybe your dad, or just about being a dad now that you've had the honor for 6 years now.
Well, and I say for the first 25 years of my life, I honestly never thought I would be a dad. But now that I have 3, I know I was put here on this earth to be a dad. I take a lot of pride in the way I handle myself with my kids. And a lot of it comes from my dad. I still thank him all the time for putting me ahead of the curve today. He taught me made me learn how to fix stuff. Get your problem, take a step back and take a look. Take responsibility when you mess up, just little things like that. And those are values that I feel like are kind of gotten away from in today's world. So those are ones, my kids will have a healthy dose of reality and know what the world's really like, but be able to look at it with a positive outlook, because some kids today seems like they grow up, and if I was in that age, you feel like the world's imploding on you. You're not going to stand a chance, but that's not really the way it is. So there's so much in their faces saying, do this or do that. And what you really need is make sure they're paying attention to what you're saying, that your values are instilled in them and not something they see on YouTube. In today's world, it's what you're fighting. But it's I feel good. My kids, they're polite, they're well behaved, which they're all still feral at times, which I appreciate that. I like to see that, see that in them where they got that guff in them. But yeah, just talking to them. That's the biggest thing. Our conversations growing up, it was, you put some dirt on it, you keep moving forward, you're the boy. And now I'd like to be able to slow it down and explain it out a little bit more with a better understanding. So I have a very high pain tolerance these days, thanks to my old man, but it's okay to take a step down, slow down, talk about how you're feeling,
So I got to tell this story. We had the Christmas company party at our house. It's just, this year it was easier because there's a lot of us that have kids under the age of 10. You either have kids under the age of 10 or you're like Adam and you don't have any kids, it seems like, working here right now. But even Billy the old man's got one under 5, for God's sakes. Yeah. But so of course we have a cow in labor, having a calf, and please forgive me because, of course, I think of this story as we're on the spot, and I'm not prepared. What's your oldest one's name?
Evelyn.
I thought that was it, but I was going to say it, and I'm like, if it's not, I'm going to look like an idiot. But so she comes out, and I mean, she was so nice, but she asked some questions, and she was so intrigued about that baby calf coming out, and, you know, I don't think there's any pictures out there of this, but, you know, people that are in the farm understand when you have to put your hand inside a cow to help get a calf out, and then literally half your team and half their family is on the other side of the gate. And I may or may not have been saying a couple cuss words, you know, because I remember looking at Evelyn, I was like, I'm so sorry. And your wife's like, it's okay. So,
yeah, she's heard the vernacular before.
but you say let kids be feral, and like one thing that literally me and Emily were having this conversation last night. Emily's like, I'm so tired of buying like bit sets and driver sets for our end packs. And I mean, my boy is 10, going to be 11 here in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is. And like he just takes stuff apart. And I tell her, I'm like, and she's a good mom and she understands the big picture. We still get a little aggravated sometimes. We're like, why can we not find this part or this tool? Yeah. But like, it is so good for kids to get out, play, be feral, like get some dirt on them, you know, that kind of stuff, just for their development and just to be kids. Like, they're not made to be in a classroom or sit in front of an iPad or a TV for 12, 14 hours a day. Like, sometimes kids are. It's sad because, like, we wait and itch for this time of year, spring to roll around. That way, you know, because we go outside and we get home, we hang out. When the sun starts going down, we'll go in, you know, get a bite to eat. And the times where, especially right now, everybody's so cooped up from being stuck inside all winter. And so we've been outside every night. And of course, my poor son Logan had his first meeting with concrete just this last weekend. So he's scheduled to go to the dentist today and get his little baby tooth fixed. But at least it was his baby tooth, you know. And it's not like I didn't warn him. Like I said, those are some things that you got to, you know, let them do some dangerous things carefully. You're sitting there watching. Sometimes the inevitable is going to happen. How old's Logan?
2.
So he's the youngest.
No, he's Stella's the young. Or okay. Logan will be 3.
Okay.
And Stella will be 2 in June.
Okay.
But they're Irish twins, I guess you could call them.
Okay.
Right close together.
So it's so funny because my youngest son Riley came in the other day and I was like, Riley, what are you doing? And she's like, I need a Band-Aid. I mean, the poor girl's got blood pouring off of her elbow. And she's not even like flinched. She hasn't even thought about crying. Then I go outside and I see the Band-Aid on the ground. I was like, Riley, what are we doing? She goes, it was in my way, Dad. That's my feral one. Like, extreme feral one. All my kids are a little feral, it seems like. So where did your wife grow up?
She grew up in Sheridan, which is right south of Kokomo, right there in that area.
Okay.
Yeah, we met when I was living in Indy. I was doing handyman work, doing a bunch of tile, and I got a part-time job at the Olive Garden. I didn't have no business going there. Being a waiter, it really wasn't my cup of tea, but I had a lot of fun when I was in there, and, you know, it helped my, you know, my word vomit, my vernacular skills, being in that kind of situation, and I made good tips when I was in there, and then Tabitha trained me. She had been a waitress for a while. That was right before she started nursing, and but yeah, we had fun in there, and then we kind of separated for about 5 years, and then I seen her on Facebook one day and started my hunt again, and I got her. So
I was going to harass you, and was there any HR involved if she was training you? But
no, there wasn't any. They the manager there at the Olive Garden, we still go up there and eat, and he still buys our dinner every time we go up there. Dan, he was a good guy, and he also he humored me because he knew I was, you know, he liked to hear about the farm. He wanted to hear about this and that. And he let me get away with a lot there and kept me around, but never had any complaints. Always had everybody happy. But yeah, it was fun and got wife out of it. So
well, and you know, to me, it's also kind of funny. Like, to us, the farm is just so natural. So like, but really there are a lot of people that are humored. A lot of, you know, we work with a couple consulting coaches, you know, things, and it's funny. It's like as soon as I get on calls with them, how's the cows? What do you have with the cows? And right now, it seems like we got every colored calf out in the lot you can get. So, you know, you send them pictures. They're like, oh, that is so cool. Or, you know, they're showing their kids. And, you know, we'll have to have the team back out now that we have a bunch of babies running around, because I know the kiddos, you know, Ellie brought her kids one day. I think last year, just to see the baby calves one night, you know. So
well, it's funny you say that, because it is people that when you talk to people and they find out you grew up in that kind of setting, they are really intrigued by it and want to hear about it. When sometimes we're thinking, you know, I used to have to get up and scrape the farmhouse floor before school back in the day, and nobody in there wanted to get up and scrape hog crap before school. But you know, hindsight. You know, I'm usually mostly in a good mood in the mornings, you know, now, because I know I ain't getting up and doing that. I can get up, throw my jacket on, and worry about my day. So, but it is funny when the people, I understand what you're saying, how people always kind of reach or fish to hear a little more about that side of life.
So what else, so you say you're in a better mood in the mornings now because you don't have to get up and scrape Fairland pig poop, you know. But what else with your upbringing do you feel like really molded you to who you are?
I think the biggest part is just respect. You know, there's a line with every person, and you need to stay on the respectful side of that line. Now, used to, I think, you know, you give me a good enough reason, but even if you have a good enough reason, it's not that you just be the bigger person and move forward. And just the biggest, do what you say you're going to do. You know, that's be a man of your word. And I had a tough upbringing. There wasn't, you know, it was, you did what you're supposed to do. If I wanted anything on the weekends or wanted some running money, there was things that needed to be done in order to do that. And, like I always said, my dad was a hard ass, but he wasn't, you know, he wasn't that big of a hard, you know, compared to the other people I went to school with. And just to see how other people compose themselves in other situations compared to myself, that is the tell sign of just, you know, brought up, speak when you need to be spoken, and don't, I guess back in the past, you'd see some situations I can see that I'd enter myself into. I just move on. It's not worth even trying to put it in there. And it's really made me just comfortable with who I am today. I let my opinions fly freely nowadays because I know there's righteous intent behind them. I don't really put any malicious or ill will out into the world anymore, and because that stuff will come back and bite you instantly. I know from experience. So it took me the whole 40 years, you know, to kind of wrap the grasp around the whole thing, you know, but once I started having kids and my perspective started changing, it's kind of let me cruise into who I really am, you know.
Well, and, you know, one thing that I've just learned really over the last few years is, like, we're all damaged. We've all got issues from childhood trauma, and unfortunately we're creating, I don't want to say we're damaging, but we're creating a form of trauma to our own kids because we're human, like genuine, and not to make excuses like sexual trauma, that kind of, I'm not saying that's evil. I get that. But I'm just saying, like, you know, and one thing that I've learned is, like, I step back and, like, my dad was, you know, hardworking, loved the guy, full of a lot of anger. Okay. And unfortunately that's a bad trait that he gave me that I continue to work on today, you know, but I look back at, like, okay, how was he raised? Okay. My dad, when he was in the first grade, my grandpa was in a farming accident and got paralyzed. So in the first grade, so that's little Riley's age right now, a 7-year-old, he became the man of the house and ended up having to help the hired hand on the farm, run the farm at 7 years freaking old. Yeah. Like, my dad works. My dad's fed cattle his entire freaking life. Yeah. He's in his 70s and he still gets up every damn morning and feeds cattle, you know. But I just kind of look back, I'm like, holy cow, the amount of childhood he didn't have. Yeah. Because of working, you know. And, you know, my grandpa was handicapped then, unfortunately, confined to a wheelchair. And like one thing that my dad does do is my dad is at every football game. Like growing up as kids, he was at everything.
Yeah.
Football game, basketball games, FFA banquets, whatever that looked like. Here, back when I was just getting out of college, I went and coached youth football. My dad went to every freaking game of youth football that I was coaching.
Yeah.
He didn't have a kid or a grandkid, nobody on the team.
Yeah.
I was out there helping coach, and he just said that growing up, his dad never made it to any football games or maybe one.
Yeah.
But like that many years ago, 50 some years ago now, it wasn't as easy for somebody that was handicapped to get somewhere, So like, so that's just one thing that my dad's just very intentional about. He's chasing my niece around all over the state, watching her play basketball, chasing my kids all over the state, watching them show cows, and to me, like that, like I said, that just molds us. And, and I feel like it's just so much easier to show people grace, just to be like, okay, they're just, unfortunately, we all act from the way that we were raised.
Yeah.
Good or bad, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, and that right there is one telltale sign, is that the time that he puts forth, his own time and of being to all those different things, just, that's something that you can tell is most important to him. Wish he could have had more of his games watched and stuff, which I can relate to that 100%. How you talked about, you got to think in consideration how they were raised, and then the generation before them was raised, my grandpa down to dad. I know grandpa's was a lot harder than dad had, even though his upbringing was hard compared to mine, bringing up. So I know it got softer as the generations went on, but that's another thing that kind of with mine, my old man, he'd come to every game when I played football and baseball and basketball. So he would show up. Everything. Now, practices, sometimes I'd be hanging out waiting to get picked up, but he was finishing up the beans or whatever he had to finish up, So needless to say, that was one blessing for me in high school. When I was ready to get my license, it was go time. He matched me, and I bought the little Sonoma 81 off of Falmouth Farm Supply for $400, man, and I drove the wheels off of that thing. But I didn't have to wait around and practice anymore, but had a big old Purina decal on the tailgate that said "Try the pork" real big. And that went over well sophomore year in high school, but I didn't care, man. Everybody wanted to ride. But those little things, just time and showing up, it's the same kind of things that I seen, and just recognizing it, just simple, man, Dad, I appreciate you made it out. Thanks for making it out, and those are things that stick with you for a long time, knowing that they've been there. That means a lot to them. So it's good. I'm ready for those things to start coming along where I can go to practices. Right. And hopefully, I know I used to coach Little League football years ago here in Connersville. I hope Logan wants to get into something like that I can coach and do that for. So it'll be nice. I think there'll be plenty of opportunity for that.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's just it's pretty cool, like, just to see full circle things, and just to hear them kind of stories, because it's so funny, because I try to tell high schoolers this. We always seem to have a high schooler working around here, I'm like, who cares what you drive? Yeah, nobody cares, because at the end of the day, like, in 20 years they're not gonna there's going to be more stories about driving the $400 Sonoma with Purina on the back of it than there is going to be driving a $50,000 diesel truck, and it molds you. It creates, who you are. So, as we're kind of talking like more of the business stuff, like one thing I also appreciate with you is your willingness to jump in and do videos, and like, this business has exploded. Very, very, very fortunate. I want to brag on my wife for a minute, because I feel like we've been super intentional on trying to hire, and some hires stick, some hires don't. It's unfortunately, that's life, but like, that is one thing that, like, and even Emily, it's funny. I'm the sales and marketing guy. Okay. And she, like, in the beginning didn't totally understand like the whole marketing side. I just studied it. I knew it. And now she gets a lot more of that. She's involved with some of the higher, the higher level of just talking marketing stuff. And, that's one thing she's always been like, man, I really appreciate Tanner. Like he's, putting the work in. Some of the marketing company that we're working with, like your name gets brought up in a lot of meetings because of like the things that you're doing. So thank you from what we're trying to do, especially what Adam's trying to do behind the camera right now. That makes his job easier. Don't make it too easy, but I do appreciate you making it easy. But what do you feel like separates us when you're out selling? Because I'll be honest with you, I've had a lot of people call me and say, the people, your sales guys believe in you and believe in the company. And I really want it more of the company now. Some of these phone calls happened like when Nick first started telling me he was really the only sales guy, because I want it to be more of a company thing. Like I want the belief in Ellie and Laura and the crews and Tim and, the bigger picture. It's really nothing to do with Bob and Emily. We just were dumb enough to start this thing.
Well, it's the simple things that somebody answering when they call us, whether it be me or the sale or the project or the office, or getting back with them in a timely manner, going out there and talking, being able to back up the game that I talk and consistently say, our quality is one reason that sets us apart. And I can explain some of the things that we do differently that completely sets us apart. And I can present that confidently, knowing that our crews come in and, I back up what I'm telling them. And just the fact that I genuinely care about everybody I go and talk to and want to help them, and do whatever I can to help them. And I think just that genuine going in there is, I know they called me, they want me to come out and help them, and I want to go out and do the best job possible. And I like talking to people and I like meeting people. So, my biggest thing is, closing up the conversation and going on to the next one, because I can sit around and chat for whatever. And I think that's another thing that sets at least myself apart is I want to build that rapport. I want to, when I cross you on the grocery store 3 months from now after I've done your roof, I want to say, hey, how you doing? I don't want you to think, oh, that's the guy that did my roof, and then kind of look the other way, So I just seen Debbie Fall just last week. She was one of the first ones I did in Connersville at the pizza place, and stopped and talked to her for a little bit and asked her how she was doing. So it's those, and I don't even like to call it a personal touch because I do it with everybody.
Yep.
So it's more of a natural thing. I don't go into a house and feel like I got to pressure them to get it. I got to get them to realize that choosing us is their best decision for them, because I genuinely care and going to make sure things get taken care of for you. And I always get good feedback because they generally trust me, and which they should. And that makes me feel good that when they call me, they're not calling with a shaky, wondering what's going on. They're calling knowing they're going to get a solid answer, at least an honest answer from me. So,
well, and I mean, that goes back to Chris's leadership as a sales manager, in my opinion, because like as culture is a buzzword, it's something that me and Emily's tried to always be intentional about, but it's like, I've also learned the last few years, like you attract a lot of who you are, and and so you've got to start watching, like, okay, who am I attracting? Like, okay, this season of life, maybe I didn't attract the best team members, and then, you look back in the beginning and like Adam, like his job was seasonal, and we were needing some help, and the stuff that Adam used to do, had nothing to do with what he does now for us, but he just jumped in and helped. And one thing about Adam is like, he's always believed in Bob and Emily. He's always believed in Hoel Roofing. And he is also just like very kind. He goes out and does some small business spotlights, and I get so much feedback from customers of like, man, he really enjoys doing this. Yeah. And he thinks it's cool that you're willing to help invest in other companies, so like it's refreshing, because I've been in this world now for 10 plus years. And I worked at a couple of the big companies in Indy, and I get it. Some people are starting to say we're a big company, but where sales reps didn't care, unfortunately. And they had a big brand, they had a big name, so they were selling jobs without the people caring. But, you know, when I hear that our team goes up against sometimes 4, 5, 6 contractors, and they're like, you guys are the only ones that cared, or you're the only ones that were honest enough to have a conversation about this, that I feel like them other companies would have never had the conversation until after we got into it, instead of bringing it up, you know. So I can't say thank you enough. And for me, it's also really, really, really fun to hire quality people in our general area, because I want to be able to provide quality jobs when people want to raise their family in rural Indiana, you know. And, you know, I always think a lot about legacy, talk a lot about legacy, you know, me and Emily try to be super generous when it comes to team or the kids' school, or, you know, the other day, like Nick Hornaday, great young man, trying to raise some money for the youth baseball needed a new pitching machine or whatever it's called. I just shot him a text. It's like, what do you need? I'll get it.
Yeah.
And he raised enough money to actually buy one. So I bought one, and they're going to buy another one for the softball, you know, and little stuff like that. Like, you know, to me, like, that's a legacy. Like, if I can purchase that pitching machine, like, how many kids are going to get use out of that? You know, hopefully your kids do get old enough and you can go coach, and hopefully you're still working here. And it's like, okay, how can the legacy here of, okay, Tanner has a job that he can provide well for his family, but he can also still go enjoy football practice with his son, football game with the son. Like, to, you know, for me, like, I guess really what I want my legacy to look like is, like, I want the kids of my employees, my team members. I don't say employees. I feel like we're a team here. Yeah. Like, employee, I just feel like you're just a number. But I really want my kids one day to be like, see me or see my name or see my, like, the ultimate compliment would be in 20 years when your kid came up and said something to Rhett like, man, it was always fun. Like, my dad really enjoyed working for your dad. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of stuff to me is important. And then that's why me and Emily do this, you know, because we were told not to start a roofing company in Rushville, to move closer to Indy, because Indy was all where all the work was at, you know, that kind of stuff. So thank you for the values that you bring, because you fit into our values, you know, and for me, it's cool to look back and be like, yep, I had to get up and feed cows every morning. And God, I hated that. And I cussed that. You know what I mean? And now you're talking about, man, I had to get up and scrape hog shit, you know? So I guess I wasn't scraping as much poop as you were. So,
and, you know, it's been a blessing, because I've always been around this kind of trade, and this was a different spin on it. I have all the knowledge to do this job. So it was nice to have a new opportunity that, like you said, allowed me to, is even something as simple as taking one of them to the doctor, one of the kids. If they need to go to the doctor and I can make myself available to do that, that's something that I'd never had a chance to do in the past, you know. So, and still being able to, like you said, provide a good living for the family and keep everybody comfortable. It's, I can't thank you enough. I'm happy to be here.
What is your favorite product to sell? I know you're still fairly new, but what is kind of your what is truly your favorite? And what I do appreciate about our team is your willingness to sell the customer what they need, not what your commission check needs. But, you know, what is your favorite product?
Favorite product to sell is Malarkey. The SBS shingles, they are pretty cool, and my eyes were open to it. So don't get me wrong, Owens Corning, the Duration, I sell a lot of those as well. I'd put them on my home. They're solid. But the selling point, the the different aspects to talk about with the Malarkey. And after you get over the Malarkey name, usually, because that's still, a lot of people don't hear about it around this area, but I always say, they're Owens Corning out on the West Coast. They're making their way out here. So, but that's really cool to be able to pull out the little sample stuff we have, show them that you can actually bend a shingle in half compared to a different one. Those are probably my favorite ones to push. And then when somebody does decide to make that choice, it makes me even feel even better because I know they're just that even better off protected. But yeah, that's the one I like to talk about the most. I can usually spit off a little bit about that.
Well, hopefully Jared buys you lunch next time he sees you.
Yeah, he still owes me a couple hats.
Oh yeah, Jared. But yeah, kind of as we wrap up, any word of advice, any words of wisdom you want to tell our guest?
If you want to pick up on what I've been doing, just, start off on the good foot. Wake up and be grateful for what's going on. Try not to tread on all the worries. And most times in life, you realize something you've been worried about gets handled pretty easily. And then you put yourself through all that turmoil and worry for nothing. So just try to stay positive and keep that feeling that, everything's going to be okay. And put good back out, good out into the world, because the bad stuff, you've done it, and it's going to come back and get you. So just, try to stay positive, and as hard as it can be, try to, bring yourself back into center and realize what you're grateful for and be thankful for that next day you got. So.
Well, Tanner, not to sound too cliche, but we're grateful for you, and I appreciate you, sir.
Yep, it's been an honor.
So, as Tanner said, just kind of whenever you're listening to this, just reflect back on a couple things that you could be grateful for. Thank you.
Thank you.